Okay, let's go over one of the other tools that is really handy in After Effects, especially when it comes to videos where you have unwanted objects or even people. If you want to remove something from videos, this is the lesson that you're going to need. We're going to be talking about the clone stamp tool, which is up here. If you've worked with Photoshop, then you know exactly what this guy does. It's really helpful to copy and clone a certain amount of pixels onto other parts of the footage. So let's get started. I'm going to make my composition. And then I'm just going to drag in some videos that I have downloaded. These videos will be available in the resource pack that you can get from this course. So I'm going to bring those in. There we are. I have 3 videos. And I'm just going to close the panels I don't need. Effects and presets. Don't need that. And I'm going to drag in these 3 videos onto my timeline. And once I zoom out, you can see some of them have been scaled in. So I'm just going to bring them back and make them as big as my composition. And I wanted to mention a few things about the videos that we have. I have 3 examples right now. The first one, you can see, I'm going to let it kind of render so we can see it. Essentially, when you want to use the clone stamp tool, you want to make sure that the video that you have is still. So it's not moving, it's shot on a tripod, because if it moves, that fixed area is going to be moving around and kind of showing the object that you didn't want in the first place. So I'm going to let these videos run for 5 seconds and then I'll just cut the rest because I won't be needing them. So this guy, I'll make this guy 5 seconds long. And bring this guy here. Another 5 seconds. Turn on the visibility. And then another 5 seconds for the final video. Control-Shift-D to cut your videos. And then I'll just drag and close this off so that our video loops. Then I'll let it run again. So we can see exactly what type of videos we're working with, and I can explain the things that we need to look out for when we're trying to download a video for the clone stamp tool. So a little bit more rendering, and then I can show you guys the preview of the videos. Alright, so the first video, you can see it's moving. It's a really slight movement, but we have this candle and we have this lady. The second video is completely still. We only have one moving element in here. The third video was shot by a drone. It's again really slow. And basically all of these videos, except for the one in the center, have some sort of movement. And once I move forward with this lesson, you will see exactly why we need to make sure our videos are still and our videos are not moving around. Okay, so if I grab the clone stamp tool, you can see I got a random window. I'm going to drag paint and put it on this side. We also got our brushes panel. I'll just bring this next to this. All right, so we have our timeline. So when you click on this, you will get the paint and the brushes panel. If you're not seeing these, it should come by default, but if for any reason it didn't, just turn on paint and brushes. So if I go on brushes, we have brushes as well. So if I grab my clone tool and if I click on this, you see nothing happens. That is because these are the previews of the layers. So we're not directly working with the layers, but we're just seeing the previews that we can maybe add a certain animation to it. So in order to get the layer, of this video, we need to double click on that layer. So you see, this is where we were before. Now we have a tab for layer that's named after the video. I can zoom out. Now I can work with my clone stamp tool. And you can see I have a different cursor now. And it's going to be the same thing as Photoshop. It's not that different. But if you haven't worked with Photoshop, then it's okay. We will review everything together. And we made a course for Photoshop, so you can check that out. And over here, we have some clone options. You also have the brush option. Right now, it's 21 pixels. It's really small. And I can make my brush bigger. And let's make our brush a little bigger. I brought this guy out, put it back where it was. I'm going to enter a diameter of maybe 200 pixels. You can see we're able to see our brush now. You can change the roundness, the hardness. Right now we have a feathered brush. And if we add on to the hardness, you can see it becomes sharp. But if you remove the hardness, it's going to be feathered out. For cloning, you definitely want it to be feathered out. You do not want this because the edges of your cloned area are not going to blend in with the rest of the video, and that will be really obvious. Alright, so after I've set my brush, here are some other types of brushes that you have. See, we got some for, I guess these are good for drawing. The diameter is the size of your brush. You can change the angle if you want. It's not really helpful for this current brush because it's just a circle, but if you're going to use any of these, the angle will come in handy. I'm going to type 0. Roundness, again, if you remove it, it's going to change the size of your brush. I'm going to leave it like this. Hardness, we talked about it. We're going to remove it for our example. And the spacing is the space between each of the brush stroke. And the tip of the brush marks, this would be for things like these. The brush we currently have doesn't really need that. I'm just going to leave it at default. Down here we have brush dynamics. And basically, let me make this bigger. Basically, you get to change the size. Is it determined by pen pressure or the stylus wheel, the pen tilt? I usually leave mine on the pen pressure, which means that if I stay on one part too long and I keep going around it, it's going to become darker. If I just do a quick stroke, it's just going to be regular. And then we have the minimum size, which means that if I'm lightly going around, how many % of my brush tip do I want to be on my screen? You have the angle. I'm going to leave it on pen tilt, so if I change my angle, it's going to follow along. The roundness, again, you can choose either one of these. The opacity, you can also choose these. These are usually things you would use for painting, so with the brush tool. But for the clone tool, we're just going to leave things as it is. We don't really care about the pressure and all that, because we're just going to be drawing a big, or maybe a small, depending on the object, a big selection, and we just want it to blend in. So this is all that matters. Make sure that hardness is at 0. Okay, after I've set my brush, come back to paint. We have some clone options. So down here you can see source is set to our current video. You can see the name here. Make sure it's on that because we're going to be working with this. And over here we have some presets for our clone stamp brush. And you can see that their names are listed. We're going to be getting into these later. And you can work around with these. I'm just going to leave it as default because like we said, I'm just going to go in the basics of the tool. And then in further tutorials, we're going to learn more about the little options that we could use to make our videos better. All right, so like Photoshop, you will hold down Alt or Option. You can see if I hold down Alt, my cursor changes. You will hold down Alt on Windows, Option on Mac. to choose a source point, and you're basically cloning that source point and placing it over the area that you're going to draw. So I'm going to make my brush a little bigger because I'm trying to get rid of this candle and make sure my brush will cover it. Because 500 will do. Come back to paint. So my source point, I'm going to use this part next to it. So hold down Alt, click once on that area. And now if I go over it, you can see I'm copying that part and I'm creating clones. Let me delete that, do that again. Hold this down, click once, and then just go in one stroke before letting go of my cursor. Alright, I'll make another one. Hold down Alt. Just remove the rest of this candle. And this could happen. Sometimes you end up copying different parts of the video. So just go over it again. Choose a different source point and just remove that area. Alright, so you saw we removed the candle. And we get to choose the duration. Right now you see I started from the middle of my clip. So if I go a few frames, we still have the candle. The candle is still here. If I go over here, it's gone. So you want to start from the beginning of your video. I can just drag these guys and move them to the end. And just do that real quick. Move them here, and then I can expand the duration of my clone. So I want this to be until the end of my clip, so I will just expand the clonings for as long as my video goes. I will kind of make my clip larger, the timeline. You can see I missed a few spots. Make sure that it's aligned with the beginning and the end of your clip so you don't have some bald spots near the end. Now that I zoomed in, I can see there's some spots that I missed. Just make it as large as your clip. All right, let's zoom out. I'm gonna let this render. It's going to be laggy until it renders. Now, because this video has a little bit of movement, we might get some displacement of our clone. What that means is that sometimes the area that we chose for cloning might end up here and the candle will be revealed again. I'm going to close this layer tab. Then I'll render it. Just going to wait for it to render. And then we can see the full video. All right. Now let's see. Now because the movement is really minimal, you can see the candle is not being revealed. But if I had a shaky video, the candle would have been revealed. I'm going to demonstrate how that will look in another video, the third one of the boat. So now you saw that using the clone tool, I was able to remove something that I didn't want from my video, and that was the candle. I have the clone options down here. You can see if I close the effects. If I open the layer for my video, I now have an effects panel. If I open that, we have a paint one. And if you open that again, we have the clones listed. So if you open clone 3, it's going to be the third stroke that we added. We can change the path. So if it was here, I can add a stopwatch so that by the end of, let's say, 3 seconds, it ends up here. We have stroke options. You can change the diameter and the angle, add a stopwatch so it becomes larger as it goes. And then we have the same options for all of the clones. We also have some transform options, the regular things we would get for any other layer. Because we added 3 strokes, we have 3 clone layers, and in here you can change the blending modes. We have the effect opacity, so if you want the cloning to fade away, let me show how that looks. So it's at 100% here, and let's say here I'll make it 0. So it's going to see if we can see it. You can see the candle suddenly appears. And because of my video, it does create that spooky scene where the candle suddenly appears out of nowhere. So you can use that. It's really cool. Turn that off. We also have the regular transform tab for the video, not the clone. So you can see they're different. They're two different panels. I'm going to hit M to close that. All right, so I'll have to go back in my this guy and turn it to 100. Okay, there it is. Close that off. Now let's look at another video. I'm going to leave the middle one for last. So this guy, the drone shot, it's moving. And let's say I want to remove this boat. That means that I need to move my clone along the path. If I go in here, I'm going to double click on this layer. We get a layers. We enter the layer panel of that video. I'm going to hit H on my keyboard to get to this singular boat. Hit V and go into clone tool. And I'm going to make this small on purpose, so I get to show you guys what I mean when I ask you guys to get a still video. Let me make this like 100 pixels. So you can see it's really small. Hold down Alt to choose a source point. And let me choose one here. And we're going to use and copy that section to cover the boat completely. Making it small on purpose. Alright, so I covered this up. I'm gonna hit Edge, see what this is. Alright, just gonna leave that be. And move the screen towards the center. Alright, so if I play this back, go to my composition, let it render, then play it back again. You can see in the beginning, it's okay, and it starts to reveal the boat that we tried to get rid of. So that's why you want to make sure that your video is not moving that much and you don't have a shaky footage. And if it is shaky, you got to work with the keyframes for the clone path. But the thing is that for this guy, because there's a big blue space next to it, we could make a really big clone brush and hit and hide this big area completely. So if it did move, it would not reveal the boat. So let me delete all of these clones and backspace. Come in the beginning, double click on my layer to get into the layer panel, go to the clone tool, make my brush really big, so like 600 pixels, even bigger, 700. So if it did end up moving, it wouldn't be as bad as we saw right now. I'm going to make it a little smaller. I'll just make a bunch of clones together. So hold down Alt or Option and then start painting away the boat. And you gotta hide anything that comes out with it. So I'm gonna make my brush a little smaller. And just hide anything that is being unveiled. Let's move in a few frames and see if it's working okay. And now you can see the boat is nowhere to be found because we covered a big spot instead of just the boat. So if I get out of here and kind of render this for a preview, let's go in again. You can see the boat is nowhere to be found and my clone is not moving, as in it's big, but the movement will not affect it because I covered this whole area. Before that, I just covered this small boat, so obviously it's going to move when my footage is also moving. So you saw how we were able to remove an unwanted object. We could also remove these little spots. So let me do that as well to show that you can have multiple clones at the same time. hold down Alt, click once, and then continue to cover up these little spots. Because they're really tiny, it's a lot easier for me to remove them. Just do a single click. And we have some more. I'm going to zoom in, hit Edge to get the hand tool and just move around here. Make it smaller. Actually make it big enough so both of them can fit. Double click. Hit once. It's too big. Alright. Do the same thing here. Then we have this final guy, which I'll have to make my brush really small. Zoom in. Hit Edge to move around. Go to the clone tool and then just grab one of these and cover this area completely. Then I'm going to play it back and see if it's okay. So we saw that I need to make this area bigger. I will actually just remove this entire dark blue area. It's a lazy way to get rid of things. And I'm going to expand this clone 16. You can see we have a lot of clones. And yeah, now we're not seeing it. Let me see the other things. So these guys are being unveiled. I would have to make them bigger. So I believe, let me click and see which one is the one we have. So it was this guy. I'm going to make this, zoom in first, hit Edge, zoom in more. I'm going to make this rather large. So I'm just going to make like a big space. Go back. And now I'm not seeing that area. Alright, so you could just spend time and do this for every single one of them. But this is basically how you get to cover things. We close this. Wait for a preview. Right. So we got rid of the candle. We didn't do anything with this yet. And for the final video, we removed the boat. And we kind of did with these guys, but they appear after a while because our clone selection wasn't large enough. So let me close these. Let's work with the last clip, which is this wooden thing. I'm going to go in the beginning of this clip, zoom in, and I'm going to remove this top part. So this video does not move at all. So that will be really easy for me to just cover this piece of the wood. I'm going to zoom in quite a bit, down to the pixels. And I'm going to get my clone tool, make my brush, actually double tap on your layer. Then we're going to zoom in. Go all the way in, and then we're going to go on my clone tool, adjust the brush, choose something really small. And this doesn't matter if it's too small because the video does not move, so I don't need to cover a large area like we had to do with the two previous videos. Hold down Alt or Option and just paint away the part of the wood that you don't want. Undo that. Zoom out a little. Hit Edge. Come a bit higher. Do that again. So I'm going to grab somewhere far and then continue with the covering of this wood. Just going upwards. Make sure you're covering everything. I'm going to come up for my second clone area. This time I can make a big brush. Get my clone tool, make my brush really big, hold down Alt or Option, just remove the rest. And it reaches the top, so you want to choose somewhere lower. And there you are. And to clean up these spots, grab, because there's a difference in lighting, you can see this side is darker than this side. So just make it look neutral by following along the, let me do that again. The natural light of the clip. So just go up like that. Just make like a lot of taps to make it look more natural. That's too dark. Let's just grab one of these guys. And we have to kind of fix this area. Oops. Make that bigger. Make singular taps to make it look good. And I'm just going to lower the, change the flow of my brush. So undo that. The spots we did right here. Because I need to blend in my things, my clone strokes. I'm going to delete the ones I made for the blending part. That part's okay. So I need to blend this part in. Now the other clone strokes that I'm going to add, I need to work with the brush dynamics. So for opacity, we're going to change it to pen pressure. And for flow, we're also going to do it for pen pressure. So now the stroke is going to be really light. You can barely tell it's there. And that's just going to help us blend things in better. So I'll make like singular taps along my thing. Better yet, we could do it in one stroke so we can change the opacity to undo that. So I will choose this area. Make my brush bigger. Change the, turn this off, the pen pressure to the opacity to the pen tilt. Make singular clicks. Get larger. Single click, and now it looks a lot better. I will also grab a lighter side. And just make another, so we got part of this guy in. Grab a lighter side. It's too light, let's go for this area. Just trying to see which color shade will work out for me. Alright, gonna hit V on my keyboard, close this guy off. So maybe I could blur out this part and kind of make it smoother. I'm gonna close my paint and also get out of this layer. Because of all the clone and brush layers that we have, there's a high chance that your program might get a little laggy, so make sure that you save your project before you continue. Hold down Ctrl and press S, or Command S if you're on Mac, just in case the program crashes. I'm going to come out of here. Now you can see I removed the area. I'm just going to close this off, let it render so we can see exactly what we did. Grab the hand tool and just move my video around. Alright, so this is what we did in this middle video. We removed this part completely, and because our video is still, we're not seeing any interruptions like we're seeing in this video. So that is why it's really important that you guys choose a still video or a video that has minimal movements. So that's how the clone tool works. If you guys like, you could blur out the background for the middle video to make things blended in. And if you're going to do that, you can do it easily with a new adjustment layer. Get my effects and presets, look for blur. Okay, I'll make a new adjustment layer, new. You don't have to do this, but if you want to make things perfect, then you would make an adjustment layer. Now, because this guy is not going to be moving, the adjustment layer is just going to be in this single part. I can go with this type of layer, but if it was going to move, I would have to choose another type of layer. Control-Shift-D, remove the rest. On this guy, I'm going to add Gaussian blur. Just drag it on top. Come back in here. We will set the blurring. You can see we're blurring out the footage until I'm not seeing this sharp edge that we have. So you can see now it's perfect. I'm going to click on the adjustment layer and create a mask for the layer itself. So I'm going to get the rectangle, just drag it until this point. Once I click away, you can see that click away. I now have a blurred background. I'm going to move this up a little. Use my arrow keys to go up. And I believe my footage is not exactly right. I'm going to expand my footage. There we are. So now I got rid of the rough edges that were around our clone adjustments. Let's play that again. You can see it's a lot more smooth, and it's as if that part did not exist in the first place. So you could use the mask and the blurring option if you're trying to blur and kind of soften things out to make your videos more natural. So that's how you use the clone tool. It was really simple and definitely something that you will use quite often following your After Effects practices. I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. I will see you guys in the next one.